I am 26 years old. My wedding day was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. For most of the day, it was. The sun was shining, the flowers were perfect. My husband, Liam, looked at me as if I were the only person in the world. And my mother, Eleanor, was beaming. She had been planning this day with me. For me. For my entire life. Or so she said. The centerpiece of her planning, the ultimate gift, was her wedding dress. She had saved it for over 30 years. She told me it was her most prized possession. She had it kept in a special preservation box, waiting for the day her daughter would wear it. When she presented it to me, she cried. She said it was a symbol of our bond, of her love passing down to me. The dress was beautiful. It was a classic design, elegant and simple. We had it altered to fit me perfectly. Wearing it, I felt like I was wrapped in a legacy of love. My mother watched every fitting, her eyes filled with tears. She would tell everyone who would listen, "That's my dress. She's my daughter. Isn't she beautiful?" It made me feel special. It made me feel cherished. The ceremony was a dream. Liam and I said our vows. Our families watched. My mother dabbed her eyes with a silk handkerchief. My father stood beside her, looking proud. I felt a wave of pure happiness wash over me. Everything was exactly as it should be. At the reception, the joy continued. We danced, we ate cake, we listened to heartfelt speeches. My mother gave a speech that made everyone weep. She talked about holding me as a baby and dreaming of this very day. She looked at me, in her dress, and said her heart was overflowing. I believed her. I had no reason not to. Then, my Aunt Patricia pulled me aside. She was my mother's younger sister. They had a complicated relationship, full of old rivalries that I never fully understood. Patricia had a sharp edge to her, a way of smiling that didn't quite reach her eyes. She motioned me toward a quiet corner, away from the music and the laughter. "You look lovely, Clara," she said. Her voice was low. "Thank you, Aunt Patricia," I replied, smiling. "It's a wonderful day." She glanced down at the lace on my sleeve. She touched it lightly with one finger. "It's a beautiful dress," she said. Then she looked me straight in the eye. "You're not the first to wear that dress." The words hung in the air. I felt a small, cold knot form in my stomach. I laughed a little, thinking it was some kind of joke. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Mom saved it just for me. She never wore it after her wedding." Patricia's smile became a thin line. "I didn't say she wore it more than once," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I said you weren't the first to wear it. You should ask your mother who Eliza was." I stared at her. The name meant nothing to me. Eliza. I had never heard that name in my family before. "Who is Eliza?" I asked. "Just ask her," Patricia repeated. She gave my arm a little pat, a gesture that felt more like a pinch. "Enjoy the rest of your party, dear." She turned and walked away, melting back into the crowd of guests. I stood there, frozen. The music seemed to fade. The laughter of our friends and family sounded distant. The beautiful dress suddenly felt heavy, like it was not my own. I scanned the room, my eyes searching for my mother. I found her near the gift table, talking to one of her friends. She was laughing, her head thrown back. She looked completely happy. Then she must have felt my gaze. She turned her head and our eyes met from across the room. Her smile was wide and radiant. I tried to smile back, but I couldn't. I just looked at her, my head tilted in a silent question. Her smile faltered. It was just for a second, but I saw it. The light in her eyes flickered out. The corners of her mouth tightened. Her face, which had been so full of joy, went completely still. She froze. The blood seemed to drain from her cheeks, leaving her pale under the warm lights of the reception hall. In that single, silent moment, I knew. I knew my aunt was not lying. And I knew my mother had a secret she never wanted me to find. The happiest day of my life was suddenly tainted with a question that I knew would change everything. I tried to walk over to her. I took one step, then another. I needed to know what that look on her face meant. But as I moved, one of Liam's uncles intercepted me, pulling me into a boisterous hug and congratulating me. By the time I was free, my mother was gone from her spot. I saw her hurrying toward the kitchens, her back rigid. She was running away. The rest of the reception passed in a fog. I smiled for photos. I talked to guests. I danced with Liam. But my mind was somewhere else. I was replaying Patricia's words over and over. "You're not the first to wear that dress." And I was replaying my mother's face. That sudden, stark fear. Liam knew something was wrong. As we danced our last dance of the night, he held me close. "What is it, Clara?" He whispered into my ear. "You seem a million miles away." I leaned my head against his shoulder. I didn't want to ruin this moment, the last moment of our wedding night. "It's nothing," I lied. "I'm just overwhelmed. It's been a long day." He accepted it, but I could tell he didn't fully believe me. He kissed my forehead. "Well, soon it will be just you and me," he said. "No more crowds, no more anything, just us." His words should have comforted me, but they only made the knot in my stomach tighter. A secret was now between us. A secret I didn't even understand yet. Later, in our hotel room, the dress was laid out on the bed. It looked different now. The elegant lace seemed to hold shadows. The pristine white felt cold. I couldn't bring myself to touch it. I changed into my regular clothes while Liam was in the shower. When he came out, he saw me staring at it. "What's wrong with the dress?" he asked. I finally told him. I told him what Aunt Patricia had said. I told him about the name, Eliza, and I told him about the look on my mother's face. Liam was silent for a moment, processing it all. Then he sat next to me on the bed. "Your aunt has always been a troublemaker," he said carefully. "She probably just wanted to stir up drama on a day that was all about your mom's big moment." "I thought so too," I said, my voice barely a whisper, until I saw my mom's face. She was scared, Liam. Truly scared. He put his arm around me. "Okay," he said. "Okay. So maybe there's something to it. What could it be? Maybe the dress was a sample? Or belonged to a friend? But my mother built our whole lives around stories of her perfection," I said. "She told me for years, 'This dress is special. It's only ever been mine, and one day it will be yours.' She made me believe it was sacred. Why would she lie about something so important?" Liam sighed. "I don't know, Clara. But whatever it is, we can't let it ruin this. This is our honeymoon. Let's deal with it when we get back. Let's just focus on us for a week." I wanted to agree. I desperately wanted to pack the question away and just enjoy being a newlywed. But I couldn't. It felt like a splinter in my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mother's frozen expression. We flew to Hawaii the next morning. It was paradise. The sun was warm, the ocean was a brilliant blue. We went snorkeling. We lay on the beach. We ate amazing food. But the question was always there, a shadow in the corner of my eye. After 2 days of trying to ignore it, I couldn't stand it anymore. I was sitting on our hotel balcony, looking out at the ocean, while Liam was on the phone with his parents. I took out my own phone. My fingers trembled as I found my mother's contact. I pressed the call button before I could change my mind. She answered on the second ring, her voice cheerful and bright. "Clara, honey, how is it? Are you having the most wonderful time?" "It's nice, Mom," I said, my voice flat. Her cheerfulness faltered. "What's wrong? You sound tired." "I'm fine," I said. "I just have a question for you." There was a pause. "A question? About what?" she asked. Her voice was cautious now. "About the dress," I said. The silence on the other end of the line was heavy. I could hear her breathing. "The dress?" she finally said. "What about the dress? Did something happen to it?" "No, nothing happened to it," I said. Aunt Patricia said something to me at the wedding." Oh, for heaven's sake, my mother snapped, her voice suddenly sharp. Patricia, of course, what did that jealous woman say to you? I swear she cannot stand to see me happy. She has been trying to ruin my life since we were children. She said I wasn't the first person to wear the dress, I stated calmly. My mother scoffed. It was a loud, dismissive sound. That is ridiculous. She is a bitter, lonely woman who wants to make everyone else as miserable as she is. You cannot listen to a word she says, Clara. I'm begging you, do not let her poison your happiness. Her denial was so quick, so forceful. A part of me wanted to believe her, but I remembered her face. She told me to ask you about someone named Eliza, I said. Dead silence. For a long moment, I thought the call had dropped. I could hear nothing. Not her breathing, not any background noise. Just pure, absolute silence. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was completely different. It was cold and hard. That is an old, sad story, she said. It has absolutely nothing to do with you or your wedding or that dress. Patricia is being cruel. She's digging up ancient history to hurt you and to hurt me. So who was she? I pressed. If it has nothing to do with the dress, then just tell me who she was. I'm not discussing this, she said, her voice rising. This is your honeymoon. You are supposed to be happy. You are supposed to be celebrating your new life with your husband. I will not have Patricia and her vicious games ruin this for you. We will talk when you get home. Now please, for my sake, go and enjoy yourself. Mom, just tell me. I started. Goodbye, Clara, she said, and she hung up. I sat there, holding the phone, listening to the dial tone. She had not denied it. She had deflected. She had blamed Patricia. She had tried to make me feel guilty for asking, but she had not said, there was no Eliza. She had not said, the dress was only ever mine. Liam came out onto the balcony. He saw my face and knew immediately. You called her, he said. It wasn't a question. I nodded, tears welling up in my eyes. She hung up on me, I said. She basically admitted it, Liam. She's hiding something big. He came over and wrapped his arms around me. I leaned into him, the beautiful view completely lost to me. The paradise we were in felt like a cage. I can't enjoy this, I whispered. I can't relax. I can't pretend everything is okay. I feel like my whole life, the story she told me about us, about that dress, it's all a lie. Liam held me tighter. Okay, he said softly. Then we won't pretend. He looked at me, his expression serious and determined. What do you want to do? I want to go home, I said, the words coming out in a rush. I want to find out the truth. He didn't hesitate. All right, he said. I'll call the airline. We're going home. Cutting our honeymoon short was a drastic decision, but it felt like the only one I could make. The lie, whatever it was, had taken root. It was no longer a small splinter. It was a dark, growing shadow that I couldn't escape, not even thousands of miles away in the middle of the ocean. My mother had given me a dress, but she had also given me a mystery, and I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that solving it would unravel the perfect family picture she had so carefully painted. The flight back was long and quiet. I spent most of it staring out the window, watching the clouds drift by. Each cloud seemed to form a question mark. Liam held my hand the entire time, a silent, solid presence beside me. He didn't push me to talk. He just let me be. When we landed, I felt a surge of nervous energy. We went straight from the airport to our new apartment. We dropped our bags. The first thing I did was call my mother. She didn't answer. I called again. It went straight to voicemail. She's avoiding me, I said to Liam. What's the plan? He asked, already unpacking our suitcase. I'm going over there, I said. To my parents' house. The dress is there. She took it back after the reception to have it professionally cleaned and boxed up again. Do you want me to come with you? He asked. I shook my head. Not yet. I need to try to talk to her alone first. Maybe without an audience, she'll be honest with me. It was a naive hope, and I think I knew it even then. But I had to try. I drove to the house I grew up in. It looked exactly the same. The perfectly manicured lawn, the cheerful yellow door. It looked like a happy house. As I walked up the driveway, I felt like a stranger. I used my old key to let myself in. The house was quiet. "Mom?" I called out. "Dad?" No answer. I walked through the living room, into the dining room. On the sideboard, I saw it. The large archival box that held the wedding dress. My mother had wasted no time. I went to the box and lifted the lid. The dress was nestled in layers of acid-free tissue paper. It looked innocent. Just a piece of fabric. But it felt heavy with secrets. I carefully lifted the bodice, running my hands along the seams. I looked for a label, a tailor's mark, anything that might give me a clue. I found nothing. My mother had been thorough. Whatever this dress's history was, she had worked hard to erase it. I was standing there, holding the dress, when I heard the front door open. My mother's voice called out, "Clara, is that you? Your car is in the driveway. What are you doing here? I thought you were in Hawaii." I gently placed the dress back in the box and turned to face her. She was standing in the doorway of the dining room, her purse still on her shoulder. Her face was a mixture of surprise and annoyance. "We came home early," I said. "You came home early?" she repeated, her voice rising in disbelief. "From your honeymoon? Why on earth would you do that?" "Because you hung up on me," I said calmly. "Because you're lying to me. I need you to tell me the truth, Mom. Right now." Her face hardened. "I told you we would discuss it when you got back. I did not expect you to behave like a hysterical child and throw away a trip you've been dreaming of." "The trip stopped being a dream when I found out my wedding was built on a lie," I retorted. The anger I had been suppressing was starting to bubble to the surface. "Why did you lie about the dress?" She walked into the room and closed the lid of the box with a sharp snap. "I did not lie," she said through gritted teeth. "You told me you saved it for me. You told me it was yours. You made me believe it was this sacred thing between us. But it wasn't, was it?" She finally broke. Her shoulders slumped and she sank into a dining room chair. She put her face in her hands. I waited for the truth. Instead, I got tears. "I didn't want to burden you," she sobbed. "I wanted your day to be perfect. Only perfect." I stood there, unmoved. Her tears had always been a weapon she used to end arguments and get her way. I wasn't falling for it this time. "Burden me with what?" I asked. She looked up at me, her eyes red and pleading. "It was a family dress," she said, her voice thick with manufactured emotion. "It belonged to a distant cousin. A very, very distant cousin. Her name was Eliza. So now the name was attached to a person. A distant cousin." "What happened to her?" I asked. She passed away," my mother said, looking down at her hands. "It was very tragic, a long time ago, before you were born. The dress was so beautiful, and it was just sitting in storage. It felt like such a waste. I thought it could have a new life. A happy life. With you." Her story was plausible. It was sad. It was a story designed to make me feel sympathy for her, and for the mysterious Eliza. But it didn't feel right. If it was just a sad story about a distant cousin, why were you so terrified when I looked at you at the wedding? Why did you hang up on me? Why did you forbid anyone from talking about her?" "Because Patricia was being malicious," she insisted, her voice gaining strength. "She was twisting a sad story into something ugly to ruin our day. I didn't want you to have any sadness associated with your wedding. I did it for you, Clara. Everything I do for you." She was looking at me with such earnestness, such conviction. The loving mother, the protective mother. For a split second, I almost believed her. But the lie was too big. The cracks were too deep. Who was she, Mom? I asked again, my voice quiet. Not the story you just made up. The truth. Her face crumbled, but this time it was with anger, not sadness. I have told you the truth, she said, standing up, and I am very disappointed in you. You come back from your honeymoon, you accuse me of lying. You are letting your aunt's poison infect our family. I think you should leave. She pointed toward the door. She was kicking me out. Her own daughter. Fine, I said. I turned to walk away. My hand was on the doorknob when my father walked in. He saw my face, then my mother's. He looked tired. What's going on? He asked. Clara is leaving, my mother said sharply. She has said some very hurtful things. My dad looked at me, his expression soft and pleading. Clara, honey, whatever this is, just let it go. Your mother, she just wanted you to be happy. He was her shield, her enabler. He had probably been playing that role for their entire marriage. I looked from his weary face to my mother's defiant one. They were a united front, guarding a secret they had kept for decades. I can't let it go, Dad, I said. Not this time. I walked out of the house, the cheerful yellow door closing behind me. I sat in my car for a long time, the quiet hum of the engine filling the silence. My mother's story about a distant cousin was a lie. I was sure of it. But it was a well-constructed one. I had no way to disprove it. I had no proof. All I had was my aunt's cryptic comment and my mother's fear. I decided my next stop had to be Aunt Patricia. She had started this. Now she was going to help me finish it. I drove to her house, which was on the other side of town. Patricia lived alone. She was divorced and her kids were grown. Her house was neat and tidy, but it lacked the warmth of my parents' home. It felt like a place where someone was waiting. She opened the door before I even knocked, as if she had been watching for me. She had a small, knowing smile on her face. I had a feeling I'd be seeing you, she said, holding the door open for me. We need to talk, I said, walking past her into the living room. Tea? She asked. No, thank you, I said. I just came from Mom's house. She told me a story. Patricia sat down in an armchair opposite the sofa where I had perched. Oh, I'm sure she did, she said, her eyes glinting. Eleanor is very good at stories. Which one did you get? The one about the tragic distant cousin? My heart leaped. You know that story? Of course I know it, she said with a dry laugh. It's her favorite one. She's been practicing it for 30 years. So it's not true, I said. It was a statement, not a question. Parts of it are true, Patricia said, leaning forward. There was a girl named Eliza, and it was tragic. But she wasn't a distant cousin, and your mother didn't save the dress out of sentiment. She took it. The way she said, took it, sent a shiver down my spine. What do you mean? I asked. Who was Eliza? Patricia leaned back in her chair, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. It might have been satisfaction. It might have been sadness. Your mother made her choice a long time ago, she said slowly. She chose to bury that story and everyone in it. She built her perfect life on top of a grave, Clara. If she wants to be the one to tell you what she did, then she should be the one. It's not my story to tell. I stared at her in frustration. Then why tell me anything at all? Why say something at my wedding? Why send me on this chase if you're not going to give me the answer? Because you deserve to know that the sacred relic your mother gave you was a lie, she said, her voice sharp. You deserve to know that her perfect love story has a prequel. Eleanor has spent her whole life curating her own image. She controls every narrative. For once, I wanted someone to ask a question she couldn't control the answer to. She was enjoying this. She was using me as a weapon against my mother, a way to settle a lifelong score. I realized in that moment that Patricia was not my ally. She was just another player in this game with her own selfish motives. So you're not going to help me? I said flatly. I've helped you enough, she replied. I gave you the name. I pointed you in the right direction. The rest is up to you. I stood up. I was done with her games. Fine, I said. I'll figure it out myself. I know you will, she said, smiling that thin, knowing smile again. You're more like me than you are like her. You don't like being lied to. I left her house feeling more lost than before. I had confirmation that my mother was lying, but I was no closer to the real story. Eliza wasn't a distant cousin. My mother took the dress, and she had built her life on top of a grave. What did that even mean? When I got back to our apartment, Liam was waiting for me. He had ordered food. He took one look at my face and said, "It didn't go well." I collapsed onto the sofa next to him and told him everything. About my mother's fake story, about my father's weak defense, about my aunt's cruel game. So they're all stonewalling you, he said, handing me a plate of food I had no appetite for. They're protecting her, I said. Or themselves. I don't know which. I felt a wave of despair wash over me. Maybe I should just let it go. What does it matter now? The wedding is over. Liam put his plate down. He turned to me and took my hands. It matters because it matters to you, he said firmly. It matters because your mother has been lying to you your entire life about something she claimed was the ultimate symbol of her love. That's not a small thing, Clara. That's a huge manipulation. And if she can lie about this, what else has she lied about? He was right. This wasn't just about a dress anymore. It was about trust. It was about the foundation of my relationship with my own mother. What do I do? I asked, my voice small. They won't talk. I have nowhere to go. Yes, you do, Liam said, his eyes thoughtful. Your aunt said your mother buried the story. People who bury things leave traces. We just have to find them. He stood up and went to his laptop. Let's start with what we know, he said, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Eliza. It's not a common name, and it was a long time ago. Your aunt said it was before you were born. Your parents have been married for 31 years. So we're looking for something that happened more than 31 years ago, I said, a flicker of hope igniting within me. Liam's practical approach was like a lifeline. Exactly, he said. The story involved a tragedy, and it involved your family. We started with the most logical place. Old family photo albums. My parents had dozens of them, but I had a few at our apartment that my mom had given me when I moved out. They were filled with pictures of my childhood. Birthdays, holidays, school plays. We spent the next 2 hours poring over them. It was a strange experience. Looking at these images of a happy, smiling family, knowing that a dark secret was hidden just beneath the surface. Then, in a dusty album from before I was born, we found something. It was an album titled The Engagement. It was filled with pictures of my parents' engagement party. My mom looked so young and happy. My dad looked proud. All their friends and family were there. Liam was flipping through the pages when he suddenly stopped. Clara, look at this, he said. He pointed to a photograph in the corner of a page. It was a group shot. My mother was in the center, holding a glass of champagne. But standing next to her was another young woman. She was beautiful, with dark, wavy hair and a bright, genuine smile. She looked a little like my mother, but different. Softer. There was no name written under the picture, just the date of the party. Who is that? Liam asked. I stared at the woman's face. I had never seen her before. And yet, there was something vaguely familiar about her. I have no idea, I said. I've never seen her in any other pictures. We kept looking. The woman did not appear in any other photos in that album or any other album we had. It was just that one picture at my parents' engagement party. A ghost at the feast. This could be her, Liam said quietly. This could be Eliza. The idea sent a chill through me. If this was Eliza, what was she doing at my parents' engagement party? My mother had claimed she was a distant cousin, but there was nothing distant about the way she was standing there, right in the heart of the celebration. We had a face. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The next day, I knew what I had to do. There was one person left in my family who was from that generation, one person who might not be part of the conspiracy of silence. My grandmother. My mother's mother, lived in a nursing home about an hour away. Her health had been declining for years, and her memory was not what it used to be. Some days she was lucid, other days she was lost in the past. It was a long shot, but it was the only one I had left. I took a digital photo of the picture from the album with my phone. I drove to the nursing home, my heart pounding with a mixture of hope and dread. I wasn't sure if I was ready for what I might find. I found my grandmother sitting in a chair by the window in her small room. She looked frail, but her eyes lit up when she saw me. "Clara, my dear," she said, her voice thin and papery. What a nice surprise. I hugged her gently. "Hi, Grandma. How are you feeling today?" "Oh, the usual," she said with a weak smile. "Old, but it's good to see you. You look so much like your mother when she was your age." We chatted for a few minutes about small things, the weather, the food at the home. I didn't want to upset her, but I knew I had to ask. I took a deep breath. "Grandma," I started, trying to keep my voice casual. "I was looking through some old photos the other day. I found one I wanted to ask you about." I took out my phone and showed her the picture of the young woman with the dark, wavy hair. "Do you remember who this is?" I asked. My grandmother squinted at the screen. She took the phone from my hand, holding it close to her face. She was silent for a long time. I watched her, my breath held. Then her eyes filled with tears. A single tear traced a path down her wrinkled cheek. "Eliza," she whispered. The name was like a sigh. "My beautiful girl." My heart stopped. It was her. Patricia wasn't lying. My mother wasn't lying about the name. This was Eliza. "You knew her, Grandma?" I asked gently. "Knew her?" she said, her voice gaining a surprising strength. "Of course I knew her. She was family." She looked up at me, her eyes filled with a deep, ancient sadness. So much promise. All gone. "What happened to her?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Suddenly, a look of fear crossed her face. She glanced around the room as if she expected someone to be listening. "We don't talk about her," she said, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "Eleanor said we don't talk about Eliza. She said it was for the best. She said it was too painful." My mother had silenced her. She had forced her own mother to bury the memory of this girl. "Grandma, it's okay," I said, taking her hand. It felt as fragile as a bird's wing. "Eleanor isn't here. You can talk to me. It's important. I need to know." But the moment was gone. She had retreated back into the fog of her memory. She started talking about something else, about a dress she had worn to a dance in the 1950s. She was lost to me. I stayed with her for another hour, but I couldn't bring her back to the topic of Eliza. The fear my mother had instilled in her was too strong, even after all these years. I left the nursing home with my head spinning. Eliza was real. She was beautiful. My grandmother had loved her, and my mother had erased her. I called Liam as soon as I got to my car. I told him what my grandmother had said. "She said Eliza was family," I told him. "And she said, my beautiful girl." It was the way she said it, Liam. It was personal. This wasn't a distant cousin. "And your mom told her never to speak of it," Liam said. "Clara, this is darker than we thought." "What do I do now?" I asked, feeling helpless again. My grandmother is the only one who might know the whole truth, and she's too scared or too confused to tell me. "Maybe we don't need her to tell us the whole story," Liam said thoughtfully. "She gave us another piece of the puzzle. She confirmed the name and the face. Now we have something to search for. He was right. We had a name and a photo. That night, Liam and I sat at our dining room table, our laptops open. We were detectives now, hunting for a ghost. We started by searching for Eliza and my family's last name. Nothing came up. We tried my mother's maiden name. Still nothing. My grandmother said she was family, I said, frustrated. But maybe not by blood. Maybe she was going to be family? Liam's eyes lit up. Like, through marriage? It was a possibility. We went back to the picture. Eliza, standing at my parents' engagement party. What if she wasn't there as a friend of my mother's? What if she was there with someone else? What if she was connected to your dad? Liam suggested. It was a strange thought. My dad was a quiet, gentle man. He adored my mother. I couldn't imagine him having a life before her. But he was at that party too. Let's try searching for his name with Eliza, Liam said. We typed it in. Robert Peterson and Eliza. Nothing. We tried adding dates, locations, still nothing. We were hitting a wall. I was ready to give up for the night when an idea struck me. It was a long shot, but we were out of other options. What if Eliza isn't her first name? I said. What if it's her middle name? Or a nickname? And what if we're searching for the wrong last name? Liam added. She might not have had your family's name yet. We needed more to go on. I remembered something else my grandmother had said. She had mentioned my mother's old house, the one they lived in before I was born. I knew the town. It was a small town, the kind where everyone knows everyone. Maybe there are local records, Liam said. Old newspapers, yearbooks. The next day, we drove to the town where my mother grew up. We went to the local library. It was a small, dusty place that smelled of old paper. We asked the librarian, a kind-faced older woman, if they had archives of the local newspaper from the early 1980s. She led us to a back room where they kept microfilm machines. We spent hours scrolling through tiny black and white pages of the town's history. We looked for wedding announcements, engagement announcements, anything with the name Eliza. After 3 hours, my eyes were burning from staring at the screen. I was about to suggest we take a break when Liam said, "Wait, go back." I scrolled back a few frames. "What is it?" "There," he said, pointing to a small article in the corner of a page. It was dated 32 years ago. The headline was simple. Local couple announces engagement. I leaned in closer to read the text. Miss Eleanor James to wed Mr. Robert Peterson. It began. It was my parents' engagement announcement. We had seen this before. No, look below it, Liam said. My eyes moved down the column, and there it was. Another announcement. A different couple. Miss Eliza Vance to wed Mr. Daniel Callahan, I read aloud. Vance, Liam said. That's not a family name we know. And the groom is Daniel Callahan, not my dad, I said, disappointed. It's a dead end. Maybe not, Liam said. He was staring intently at the tiny photo accompanying the announcement. It was grainy and small, but there was no mistaking the face. The dark, wavy hair, the bright smile. It was her. The woman from my parents' party. Her name was Eliza Vance. We had a full name. This was a major breakthrough. We quickly started searching for Eliza Vance in the newspaper archives. And that's when we found it. It was an article from a few months after the engagement announcement. The headline was much larger this time. It was stark and brutal. Local woman dies in tragic accident. My blood ran cold. I read the first line. Eliza Vance, 24, was killed last night in a single-car accident on Route 9. Oh my God, I whispered. This was the tragedy my aunt and my mother had spoken of. She had died. I kept reading, my hands shaking. The article described the accident. The car had swerved off the road and hit a tree. Eliza Vance, the passenger, had died at the scene. The driver had survived with minor injuries. I scanned the article, looking for the driver's name. My heart was pounding in my chest. I felt like I already knew what I was going to find. And then I saw it. The last paragraph of the article. The driver of the vehicle has been identified as Robert Peterson, 25, of this town. Miss Vance was his fiancée. I read the sentence again. And again. It wouldn't compute. Robert Peterson, my father. Eliza Vance was his fiancée. Not my mother's. My father's. I looked at Liam. My face must have been pale because his expression immediately filled with concern. Clara? What is it? I couldn't speak. I just pointed at the screen. He leaned in and read the paragraph. He let out a slow breath. Oh, Clara. The pieces started to click into place, forming a picture that was more horrifying than I could have ever imagined. The dress. It wasn't my mother's wedding dress. It was never my mother's wedding dress. It was Eliza's. It was the dress she was going to wear to marry my father. The dress of the woman who died in a car accident while my father was driving, just weeks before their wedding. My mother hadn't just given me a second-hand dress. She had given me a dead woman's wedding dress. A woman who was supposed to have the life my mother got instead. A woman my father had loved. I felt a wave of nausea so intense I had to grip the edge of the table. This wasn't a lie. It was a monstrosity. My mother's perfect gift was not a symbol of her love for me. It was a trophy. It was a final, twisted victory over her dead rival. All those years, all those stories, the way she would touch the dress with reverence, the way she cried when she gave it to me, it was all a performance. A sick, elaborate, 30-year-long act of cruelty. She hadn't just lied to me. She had made me an unwitting participant in her twisted psychodrama. She had wrapped me in the ghost of my father's dead fiancé and called it love. I'm going to be sick, I whispered. Liam quickly helped me up and led me out of the stuffy archive room. We found a bench outside the library, and I sat down, putting my head between my knees, trying to breathe. The world was spinning. The love I had felt for my mother, the deep foundational bond I thought we had, was shattering into a million pieces. It was being replaced by a cold, hard horror. Who was this woman? This woman I had called Mom my whole life? She was a stranger, a monster hiding behind a mask of maternal love. What kind of person does that? I choked out, tears finally streaming down my face. What kind of mother does that to her own daughter? Liam sat beside me, his arm firmly around my shoulders. He didn't have an answer. There was no answer. There was no explanation that could make this okay. She has to pay for this, Liam, I said, my voice shaking with a rage that was beginning to eclipse the shock and the grief. I can't let her get away with this. She won't, he said, his own voice tight with anger. I promise you, she won't. We had the truth. We had the newspaper articles. But I knew that wouldn't be enough. My mother would deny it. She would create a new story. She would twist it and turn it until she was the victim. I needed more. I needed something undeniable. I needed proof that connected the dress itself to Eliza. The next day, my mind was clearer. The rage had settled into a cold, hard resolve. I knew what I had to do next. I had to go back to my grandmother. She was the only living link to that time. The only one who had known both Eliza and the dress. This time, Liam came with me. I needed his support. I couldn't face her alone again. When we arrived at the nursing home, I had a different strategy. I wasn't going to ask her to remember a story. I was going to show her something. We found my grandmother in the common room, watching television with a few other residents. I knelt down in front of her chair so I was at her eye level. Hi, Grandma, I said softly. She looked at me, a flicker of recognition in her eyes. Clara, and you brought your young man. This is Liam, my husband, I said. She smiled faintly at him. He's handsome. I took out my phone. I didn't show her the picture of Eliza this time. Instead, I showed her a picture of me. A picture from my wedding day, in the dress. "Grandma, do you remember this dress?" I asked. She looked at the photo, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It's a wedding dress," she said. "You were a beautiful bride, dear." "Thank you," I said. "Mom gave it to me. She said it was hers." I watched her face carefully. A shadow of confusion passed over her features. "Eleanor's dress?" she repeated. "No, that's not right. Eleanor's dress was different. It had big, puffy sleeves. It was the 80s, you know." My heart pounded. This was it. This wasn't her dress, was it, Grandma? I pressed gently. She looked back at the photo on my phone. Then her eyes drifted away, looking into the past. "No," she said, her voice distant. This was the pretty one. The one for the wedding that never happened." She was so close. I had to guide her. "The wedding for Eliza?" I whispered. Her eyes snapped back to mine. They were suddenly clear and sharp. The fog had lifted. "Yes," she said, her voice firm. "Eliza's dress. For her wedding to Robert." "Robert, my father." She said it so casually. "What happened to the dress after she died?" I asked, holding my breath. A look of deep disapproval settled on my grandmother's face. "Eleanor took it," she said, her voice filled with an old resentment. "When Robert and Eliza's mother was clearing out her apartment, Eleanor was there, helping. She took the box with the dress. She said it was a shame to let such a beautiful thing go to waste. She said she would keep it safe, but she hid it. She packed it away in the attic and told all of us we were never to speak of Eliza or the dress again." The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. My mother hadn't just kept a dress. She had actively taken it from a grieving mother's home under the guise of helping. She had stolen a memento of a dead woman. "She told me it was hers," I said, my voice breaking. "She gave it to me for my wedding." My grandmother's face, which had been so clear, now filled with horror and disbelief. She looked at the picture of me in the dress again, and this time she truly understood. "She what?" she gasped. "No." She wouldn't. "Oh, Eleanor, what have you done?" She started to cry. Not the soft, confused tears from before, but deep, racking sobs of shame and sorrow. "That poor girl," she wept. "That poor, sweet girl, and now you— Oh, Clara." Liam put a hand on my shoulder. I had my proof. It was more terrible than I could have imagined, but it was undeniable. My own grandmother was my witness. We spent another hour with her, calming her down. As we were leaving, she grabbed my hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Your mother," she said, her voice low and intense. She was always so jealous of Eliza. Robert loved her so much. Eleanor was just a friend from the neighborhood. She was always on the sidelines. After the accident, she stepped in. She took care of Robert, and she took everything that belonged to Eliza. His heart, his life, even her dress. The motive, it wasn't just about waste. It was about jealousy. It was about winning. My mother hadn't just married my father. She had conquered him. And the dress was her flag, her symbol of victory that she had kept hidden for 30 years, only to bring it out and force it upon me, her own daughter, to relive her triumph. Driving home, I was silent. The whole twisted, ugly story was laid out before me. My mother was not the victim. She was the villain. My father was not just a quiet man. He was a man living in the shadow of a tragedy, a man who had let his new wife erase his past. And I was the pawn in a 30-year-old game of jealousy and possession. When we got back to our apartment, I felt a strange sense of calm. The shock was gone. The grief was still there, but it was overshadowed by a cold, clear purpose. "I know what I have to do," I said to Liam. "What?" he asked. "My grandmother's birthday is in 2 weeks," I said. The whole family will be there. My mother always hosts it. She loves to be the center of attention, the perfect daughter, the perfect matriarch. It's her favorite day of the year. Liam's eyes widened as he understood. You're going to confront her there? Yes, I said. She built her life on lies told in secret. I'm going to expose her with the truth in front of everyone she tricked into believing her performance. For the next 2 weeks, I prepared. It felt like I was preparing for a battle. Liam helped me. We went to the library and made high-quality copies of the newspaper articles, the engagement announcement for Eliza Vance and Robert Peterson, and the article about her death, naming my father as the driver. Then I did something else. I found a photo printing service online. I took the digital picture of Eliza from my parents' engagement album and had it professionally printed and framed. A simple, elegant silver frame. I wanted her to be more than a name. I wanted people to see her face. During those 2 weeks, my mother called me several times. I didn't answer. She left messages, her voice shifting from angry to wounded to sweet. Clara, darling, please call me. I'm so worried about you. I cannot believe you are shutting me out like this after everything I've done for you. Your father and I are just heartbroken. Let's put all this silliness behind us and be a family again. Each message only strengthened my resolve. She wasn't sorry. She was just annoyed that her perfect world had been disturbed. She had no idea what was coming. The day of my grandmother's party arrived. It was a sunny Sunday afternoon. I dressed carefully in a simple blue dress. I felt calm, almost detached. Liam stood by my side, a quiet pillar of strength. He held the folder with the newspaper articles and the small framed photo of Eliza, which was wrapped in a cloth. We drove to my parents' house. The place was already full of people. Aunts, uncles, cousins. Everyone was laughing and talking. The house was decorated. A large happy birthday banner hung over the fireplace. It was the picture of a happy family celebration. My mother greeted us at the door. She pulled me into a tight hug. Clara, you came. Oh, I was so worried. She was playing the part of the relieved mother. Hello, Mom, I said, my voice neutral. I gently detached myself from her embrace. She looked from me to Liam, her eyes narrowing slightly as she took in our serious expressions. A flicker of unease crossed her face, but she quickly covered it with a bright smile. Well, come in, come in. Your grandmother is so excited to see you. We went inside. I greeted my grandmother, who was sitting in a comfortable chair like a queen on her throne. When she saw me, her eyes filled with a sad understanding. She squeezed my hand tightly. Be strong, child, she whispered, so low that only I could hear. The party continued. People ate, they drank, they shared stories. My mother flitted about the room, the perfect hostess, making sure everyone's glass was full, making sure everyone was happy. She was in her element. She was in control. My father was more subdued. He kept glancing at me nervously. He knew something was wrong. He knew I hadn't just gotten over it. But as always, he did nothing. He just watched, waiting for my mother to handle it. Finally, the moment came. It was time for the cake. Everyone gathered in the living room. My mother stood next to my grandmother, holding a knife. Before we cut the cake, my mother announced, her voice ringing with false cheer, I just want to say a few words. She launched into a speech about my grandmother, about family, about the importance of love and tradition. Then she turned her eyes to me. I am so blessed to see these traditions continue, she said, her voice thick with emotion. To see my own daughter, Clara, get married in my dress. A dress full of love and happy memories. It was the greatest joy of my life. It's a reminder that what we pass down to our children is the most important thing in the world. She was using the dress again. She was trying to publicly shame me into silence to reinforce her narrative in front of the whole family. It was a calculated move, and it was her last mistake. The room was silent. Everyone moved by her words. I let the silence hang for a moment. Then I stood up. Speaking of traditions, Mom, I said, my voice clear and steady. And speaking of the dress, I've been thinking a lot about it. Every eye in the room turned to me. My mother's smile froze on her face. It was the same frozen look I had seen at the wedding, but this time it was mixed with a dawning horror. She knows. The thought was written all over her face. "That's lovely, dear," she managed to say, her voice tight. "It is lovely," I agreed, because I finally learned its true story, and it's a story I think everyone here should know, especially Grandma. I looked at my grandmother, who was watching me with a steady gaze. "I learned that the dress wasn't yours, Mom," I continued. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. "I learned it belonged to a woman named Eliza Vance." My mother's face went white. My father, who was standing near the fireplace, looked like he had been struck by lightning. He physically flinched, his hand going to his chest. Aunt Patricia, who was sitting on the sofa, had a look of pure, unadulterated shock on her face. She had started the fire, but she had never expected it to become an inferno. "Clara, I don't know what you're talking about," my mother said, her voice a strained whisper. "This is not the time or the place." Her eyes darted around the room, seeing the confused faces of our family members. She was losing control of her audience. "You don't?" I asked, my voice laced with ice. "I am here now. This is the moment. Eliza Vance, the woman Dad was engaged to marry before you. The beautiful young woman who died in a car accident just a week before her wedding. The wedding where she was supposed to wear my wedding dress. It was her dress, wasn't it, Mom?" I am looking right at her. Her mask is cracking. Her whole body is trembling. She is trying to find words, but none are coming. "This is ridiculous," she finally sputtered. "You are upsetting your grandmother. You are ruining her birthday." She was grasping for a shield, and my grandmother was the only one she could find. "I think Grandma is the one who has been upset for 30 years, I said, my voice rising with passion. "She loved Eliza, and you made her and everyone else forget her. You buried her memory. You stole her wedding dress from her grieving mother's house and you hid it. And then, 30 years later, you gave it to me. You gave it to your own daughter as some kind of sick, twisted trophy of a victory you stole." My father finally spoke. His voice was hoarse. "Clara, please," he begged. I turned my gaze on him. The anger I felt toward him was different. It was the anger of profound disappointment. "No, Dad," I said. "You don't get to say please. You let her do this. You stood by while she erased the memory of the woman you were supposed to marry, the woman who died while you were driving the car. And then you watched. You watched her take out that woman's dress, that symbol of your shared future, and put it on me. Did you think I would never find out? Did you think it was okay?" He had no answer. He just stared at me, his face a mask of shame and regret. I walked over to the table where Liam was standing. I took the folder from his hands. "For anyone who thinks I am making this up," I announced to the room, "I brought some light reading." I took out the copy of the engagement announcement. "This is from the local paper, 32 years ago," I said, holding it up. "The engagement of Miss Eliza Vance to Mr. Robert Peterson." I heard gasps from around the room. My cousins, my other aunts and uncles, were looking from the paper to my father in stunned disbelief. Then I took out the second article. "And this is from a few months later," I said, my voice dropping, announcing Eliza's death and naming my father as the driver. A wave of shock and horror rippled through the family. The happy party atmosphere had evaporated, replaced by a thick, heavy silence. Finally, I took out the small framed photograph of Eliza. I unwrapped it from the cloth. I walked over to the mantelpiece, cleared a space among my mother's curated family photos, and I set it down. "This was Eliza," I said softly, but my voice carried through the silent room. "She was not a distant cousin. She was the love of my father's life. She was a daughter your sister loved," I said, looking at Patricia. "She was a girl your mother cherished. I said, looking at my grandmother. Her memory deserves more than being a dirty secret. My mother used to feel like a winner. That was when my mother finally broke. The facade of the perfect matriarch shattered into a million pieces. How could you? She shrieked, her voice raw and ugly. How could you do this to me after everything I've done for you? I gave you a perfect life. I gave you everything. You are an ungrateful, cruel child. She was shouting, her face contorted with rage. But no one was looking at her with sympathy. They were looking at her with dawning comprehension. They were seeing the monster behind the mask, just as I had. They saw the jealousy, the manipulation, the breathtaking cruelty of it all. Her performance was over. The applause had stopped, and she was standing alone on a stage of her own making, exposed under the harsh, unforgiving light of the truth. The aftermath was immediate and devastating for her. The party dissolved in a matter of minutes. Family members made quiet, awkward excuses and left, their faces a mixture of shock, pity, and disgust. They couldn't look at my mother. They couldn't look at my father. The happy family portrait was shattered, and the pieces were scattered all over the floor of their perfect living room. I didn't stay to watch the final collapse. Liam and I said a quiet goodbye to my grandmother, who was being tended to by a cousin. She held my hand and just nodded, her eyes saying everything that words could not. Then we walked out of the house, leaving my mother standing alone amidst the ruins of her birthday party, her face a mask of fury and disbelief. My father was slumped in a chair, his head in his hands. The framed photo of Eliza was still on the mantelpiece, a silent, powerful witness to the truth that had finally been spoken. The phone call started the next day. The first was from my father. His voice was weak, broken. "Clara, I am so sorry," he started. "Sorry for what, Dad?" I asked, my voice cold. "Sorry you let your fiancé's memory be erased? Sorry you let her dress be stolen? Or sorry you watched your wife put it on me and said nothing for 6 months?" I don't know," he stammered. "I was young when it happened. I was grieving. I was lost. Your mother, she came in and she took control of everything. It was easier to just let her. I was weak. I have been weak for 30 years. It was a confession, not an excuse. It was pathetic, but it was probably the most honest thing he had said to me in my entire life. "I know you were, Dad," I said. "And I don't know if I can forgive that. I need space. I need a lot of space." "I understand," he whispered. "I love you, Clara." "I know," I said. And I hung up. I felt a pang of pity for him, but it was quickly replaced by the cold reality of his decades of cowardice. He had chosen his path long ago. The next call was from Aunt Patricia. Her voice was smug, triumphant. "Well," she said, drawing the word out, "I knew you had it in you, but I never expected fireworks like that." She's had it coming for years, you know. Decades. "Why did you do it, Patricia?" I asked, genuinely curious now. "Why did you hate her so much?" There was a pause. "Because I loved Eliza," she said, her voice suddenly losing its sharp edge. "She was my friend. She was kind and funny. She was supposed to be my sister-in-law. And then she was gone. And Eleanor. She just swept in and took her place. She acted like Eliza never existed. She made us all complicit in her erasure. I couldn't stand it. I could never stand the way she smiled, knowing what she had done." I understood her motive now. It was born of grief and a sense of justice. But her method had been cruel to me. "You used me," I said simply. "You could have just told me the truth from the beginning." "Would you have believed me?" she asked. "Or would you have thought I was just a jealous aunt trying to ruin your wedding? Your mother had you convinced she was a saint. You had to find out for yourself. You had to see it with your own eyes. She wasn't wrong, but I didn't feel any gratitude toward her. Don't call me again, Patricia," I said. "You got what you wanted. Your feud is over. Leave me out of it." I hung up before she could reply. I didn't need her brand of toxic vindication in my life. Other family members reached out. A cousin called, horrified. I can't believe it, Clara. We always thought your mom was so perfect. My mom is beside herself. The family network was buzzing, and the consensus was clear. My mother's deception was unforgivable. Her reign as the beloved family matriarch was over. My mother, of course, tried to contact me relentlessly. She sent a barrage of text messages that swung wildly between rage, guilt-tripping, and pathetic pleading. You have destroyed this family. I hope you're happy. How could you dishonor me in front of everyone? I am your mother. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I just loved your father so much and I was young and stupid. Please, Clara, don't throw away our whole relationship over a silly old dress. A silly old dress. She still didn't get it. She never would. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was only sorry she got caught. I read the messages, one after another, and felt nothing but a cold, empty distance. Then I blocked her number. I blocked her on social media. I cut the cord. A month later, Liam and I did something just for us. We went to the courthouse and then had a small, private ceremony on a beach with just a handful of our closest friends. A vow renewal, of sorts, a reclamation. I wore a simple, beautiful dress that I had picked out myself, that I had paid for with my own money. It was mine. The vows we exchanged were our own. The memories we made that day belonged only to us. It felt clean. It felt right. It felt like a true beginning. I started visiting my grandmother on my own. We didn't always talk about the past. Sometimes we just sat and watched old movies. But sometimes she would tell me stories about Eliza. Not about her death, but about her life. I learned that Eliza had a wonderful, loud laugh, that she was studying to be a teacher, that she loved to garden. I learned about the woman, not the tragedy. In a way, I felt like I was giving her memory the respect and the life it had been denied for so long. One afternoon, my grandmother was looking at the framed photo of Eliza, which I had brought to her room. You know, she said quietly, your mother always thought that dress was her power. Her power over a ghost, her power over your father. She thought by controlling the story of the dress, she could control everything. I looked at the photo, at Eliza's bright, hopeful smile, forever frozen in time. She was wrong, I said. The dress wasn't her power. The truth was my power. She tried to make me a part of her lie, but instead I became the one who exposed it. My grandmother smiled, a real, genuine smile. Yes, you did. My mother never recovered her status in the family. She and my father are still together, a quiet, isolated couple living in a house full of ghosts. They are prisoners of a secret that is no longer secret. She lost the one thing she valued most, the adoration and respect of others. Her public image, so carefully constructed, was gone forever. I learned a hard lesson. That love can be a mask for control. That family can be a stage for the darkest of plays. But I also learned that the truth, no matter how painful, is liberating. My mother thought she was passing down a legacy of love. Instead, she passed down a reckoning. And it finally came for her, not for me. I stopped giving warnings and started setting boundaries. And in doing so, I finally found out what it feels like to be free, in a life that is truly my own. They finally learned what it feels like to be small, to be seen for what you really are, stripped of all the pretty stories you tell yourself. And I am at peace.